Today, we're talking about why the clutter in your home is holding you back from experiencing your next level self. I recently came back to California, where I live, and I spent 2 weeks in the jungle in the Philippines, where my family is from. And normally I spend like 3, 4 weeks there at a time, but now with a young daughter, a husband, and responsibilities at home. We stayed there for 2 weeks. And while being there, we stayed at my family, my parents have built a home on their land there, my mom's side of the family. Um, and it's this, rest house, beautiful, simple, clean, and not a lot of things because it's just a place that they go to when they're staying there. And it's funny too because it's an octagon shape. Um, but anyway, as soon as we get there, my daughter is like, "Mommy, I love this home. I love this house." And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, what do you love about it?" And she said, "It's just so clean and spacious and like kind of empty, honestly." And and another thing is it's immersed in nature. It's in the middle of the jungle. And so we spent the time there. It was wonderful, very relaxing. Every time I go home to the Philippines, I always come back feeling rejuvenated, feel glowing. I feel like it just kind of resets me from the inside out. Um, the nature being a big part, getting a lot of sunshine, being with family. And another thing I noticed is you can't really get around from place to place there unless you have a car. You would have to interact with people. So lots of social time with not just family, but people in the community. And it's just a totally different world. Anyway, so going back to the clutter, as soon as we got home, which was about 2 or 3 days ago now, I noticed that, and mind my my mouth, I just went to the dentist and I'm still numb on the side. But anyway, we come home and I notice, we live in a beautiful home, like in a beautiful gated community near the beach in Southern California. And, this is the most beautiful place I've ever lived. Um, and not just the city, but the home as well. And so we come home and I notice maybe not even a day, 2 days in, I feel like this wave of anxiousness, even though I had just spent 2 weeks, on vacation, not felt any anxiety, and my anxiousness has like lessened so much since healing from the doing my own inside, from doing my inner work, knowing, learning Reiki, learning more about my energy and how to clear it, and now doing coaching, all the things. My anxiety has like pretty much gone. And so, but I noticed there's this, because when you're away for so long, when you come back, there's this juxtaposition between where I was and now where I am currently. And so when we get in the house, I notice after being here for just a day or two, I told my husband, I feel like this weight of anxiety, and I can't really figure out what it is until I notice and I pinpoint and I start looking at, okay, what was it? What were we experiencing in the Philippines compared to where we live here? And it's the clutter. And our house is not, people come in and I'm like, oh, I'm excuse the mess. And people have told me many times, like, oh, it's funny that you think this is messy. And because my mind knows there's things don't need that are still here, things are not organized, things are not intentionally placed. And to me, that feels messy, right? Because I'm just a very thorough person who wants to go through every single item, make sure it's intentionally placed somewhere, has a purpose, has meaning, has a functionality, and then let the rest of the stuff go. That's how my mind works. So knowing that I haven't quite done it yet here in this space, I realized there's this pull of your energy when there's clutter everywhere. And um and so I've really decided that every time, and I've noticed, I should say, every time I've had this huge leap of growth and transformation in my physical, in my experience, in my identity, there was always a period where I changed my physical surroundings. So, for example, when I still lived at home with my parents, I was very much in the victim mentality, but getting out of it slowly, learning more, pursuing personal development, looking at my thoughts and my subconscious beliefs and starting to dig into those. And the room that I had when I lived with my parents was so cluttered with stuff. Like I had a ton of clothing, a ton of accessories, a ton of just things that I had collected. And it came and stemmed from this subconscious belief of not feeling enough, low self-worth, and wanting to fill a void, right? Wanting connection, wanting meaning. And so, and not feeling like I had enough. So I accumulated all this stuff to soothe that wound that I was experiencing. And once I pursued personal development, started learning more about my mind and my subconscious beliefs and rewiring those, I naturally started to let go of things. And I remember putting all of the clothes and things that I no longer needed or used or wanted. And it ended up being like 10 huge, I don't know, it's like 10 or maybe more, I don't know, huge garbage bags, black ones, black garbage bags, the big ones, full of stuff. And I just remember being so disgusted with myself, like carrying them out to my car to bring to Goodwill or to the Salvation Army. I think it was Goodwill that I brought it to. Um, but again, once you have this identity shift, you become a different person. And so you have to experience a different um, reality. And so that version of me no longer needed the stuff, right? So it had to go. And so as soon as I made the space for that, because even though it's material stuff, it's also energetic space. As soon as I cleared that space, new things rushed in and new opportunities for me to embody my next level self, which was someone who was operating in a different way. And from there, I um, attracted my husband. I manifested a relationship, a marriage. I got married very quickly after, you know, working and developing myself. And so from there, I moved in with my husband and we lived in this little apartment, one bedroom apartment. And it wasn't in the best condition. It was kind of gross, honestly, since he was living there previously and it was like his bachelor pad. But I remember soon after I moved in with him, we ended up getting pregnant. I had my daughter, like less than a year altogether. COVID happened, and the place never really bothered me before, but I noticed as soon as I had my daughter and I knew I was going to bring her home, it felt like not good enough anymore. And it just reminds me of like sometimes we don't have the standards for ourselves, but for our loved ones, we have like the highest standard. And so that was like another opportunity for me to learn how to love myself more and have higher standards for myself and all that stuff. Anyway, while we were there, I remember like loathing taking her home. And I mean, I was happy that she was coming home because she was in the hospital for 5 months in the NICU, but it's so much anxiety over taking her home to this place that we lived in. And so just like I view anything, my husband's like, we're not moving, it's COVID, or whatever the excuses were. But I made a conscious decision that I was going to love this space and be grateful for this space as best I could while we were there. And so I went through the process of again decluttering, letting go of things, cleaning things fully, deep cleaning things, placing things intentionally, making the space for things I love, letting go of things that I didn't need, which is again an energetic process of releasing who you no longer are to make room and space for you and for myself to live in a new way and embody a new way of being, which then manifests a new reality. Because I remember I was going room by room, my daughter had come home, and I all I needed left to do was the bathroom area. And I had made peace and had gratitude for wanting to for living in this space, and I still had the desire to move. And something happened where suddenly we had a leak and we had to move, which and we moved out and ended up living in a nicer, it wasn't even an apartment. We moved into a townhome. And I truly believe that happened and that manifested because of what I did in the process that I took at our previous apartment. And then at this apartment, same thing. We moved everything in, and now it's not just my stuff, it's my husband's stuff, our daughter's stuff, like with babies and children that are growing super fast in the first 3 or 4 years. Just like we accumulated so much stuff that it just felt very overwhelming. And I remember living in that, even though it was a nicer city, we were living in a beach city. And we loved our townhome, our neighbors, the area. We lived with boxes in our townhome for a long time, and just being a new mom, new parents, and working, and it just felt like so overwhelming. The stuff was just everywhere, and that home, I went through so much transformation. It's where I started learning Reiki, spiritual life coaching. I started my business there. Lots of change and transformation happened, which coincidentally also the number of that townhome was 5 5. And if you know, 5 is the number of transformation. So there was all these things that happened there, but and a lot of inner work that happened there too. And so the home always felt kind of heavy and just it just felt very heavy. And I realized too, it's because um, all the stuff in boxes, all the things that were still left out, was kind of like a manifestation of what was happening internally with me. I was beginning to process unresolved things, right? Hence the boxes, the things still in their boxes. And I was beginning to open them up and move through them and process them. And um, that's why it felt so heavy. That's why it felt so anxious there. And I realized through the process of discovering who I truly am and who we all truly are at a spiritual level, at a soul level, um, I again went through that process of going through all of our things, cleaning everything very thoroughly, placing things very intentionally. Um, and I realized it's because again, I had shifted into this new perception, awareness, identity, and so it was naturally I had to go through and let go of things that no longer resonated with my being. Because what happens is when you step into this new frequency and energetic way of being, the things around you are going to create dissonance because they don't align anymore. And so if you don't let them go, they can ultimately make you sick because it's almost like having something around that's pulling you back and holding you down. And I truly feel like that's why that house felt so heavy, is because like I had I had risen, I had awakened, I had gone through this process and my dark night of the soul, so to speak, and elevated my consciousness, but I was still surrounded by the physical and the material things and even relationships that were signaling to me my old identity. And so there was this weird like friction and pull. And as soon as I made the conscious decision to let go of those things, to purge, to remove and release those things, I could see more clearly. I could have more peace. I could be more centered in my new way of being, more embodied and whole way of being, and make conscious choices from there. And it came to a point where I loved our home there. I had decorated, I had gone all out. I got like um I even did like tiling on our kitchen there. And this was a rental. and I got custom, cafe curtains for our kitchen. And I truly believe like you should go as all out as you can on the place that you currently live in and the things and the experiences that you have now, not for later. And so naturally, it came to a point where I told my husband, like, I just physically don't want to and cannot live here anymore. Even though it was fine, we had great neighbors, things were, I had fixed things up. I could still feel like the resistance, the weird friction that was happening because I knew energetically I didn't belong in this place anymore. And it's funny if my husband knows, like, okay, as soon as Rosalie makes up her mind about something, it's going to happen because that's just my track record, right? So, and he knows I have this very strong intuition and sense of being, that once I have made up my mind, body, and soul on something, it's going to happen. And so at first he was very reluctant and annoyed, honestly. Like, we're not moving, we just moved here, and our neighbors are great. This is like the nicest home we've lived in so far, yada yada, all this stuff. And I decided I don't want to live here anymore. I cannot live here anymore. It doesn't feel good energetically to live here anymore. And so he's like, well, where are we going to live? So that night, I looked up places and I found our current home where we live now. It was the second place that I had found. There was another one that was I had looked into that was my top contender, but it ended up being not a real place. But this one, the second one, which amazing and not really within the price range that we wanted, but I knew we could make it happen. I knew it, and I would say coincidentally, but not, when we moved in here, we ended up making more money. And so anyway, so I found this place, and as soon as my husband never saw the place until we actually moved in. He just trusted that I had made the right choice. But when I came in to see this place, it was like my soul felt like it came home. And it's just it has high ceilings in the living room, huge windows with lots of light coming in, travertine floors, marble countertops, and just wood paneled cabinets everywhere, and built-in bookshelf, and just so beautiful, like a beautiful home in a very nice gated community with lots of greenery, trees, something that I've always wanted, and nature, flowers, and quietness, peace. And I realized, like, this is where we are meant to live. I could feel it. And my husband was just like, that's not, that was in the price range that I wanted and all this stuff. And I said, no, it needs to be this place. Like, trust me. And so he I just know to like let it simmer. And then like a day later, not even a day later, he started saying, okay, if we're gonna move there, then we need to, he's very like left brain logistics, like he's an engineer type person. So I knew as soon as he started talking that way, I was like, this is it, we're moving. And so yeah, so once we moved in, we've just had like the best time here, the best opportunities and expansion in our life, and just like my mom even says, like, I feel like you had so much good luck since moving into this place. And I realized, again, moving into this space, we naturally had to let go of things because in the move, we left things behind. We donated things, we threw things away, and we're living in a new space, embodying a new way of being. We have a new identity because of who we've become by living in this space. And so it's just natural that we've expanded internally as well. And now, after living here for almost 2 years, which is weird to say because it went so fast, now after living here for 2 years, I'm getting that feeling again of something, with anxiety that I felt when we came home from the Philippines after 2 weeks. Is there's, since we've moved in here, I haven't really like organized or decorated things like at the level of intention that I like to do, like I mentioned in the previous places that I've done, because I started my business, I've been working on things, I've been writing my book, I've been taking care of my family, I've been working. So, but now I can feel the weight of the things around us that no longer energetically align. And so I'm going through the process of decluttering, releasing, donating, purging, trashing things and placing things very intentionally in our home. And that doesn't mean purchasing new things to fill it all up again. Because some people might think of it that way. I see it as releasing the things that I do not need and then using the stuff that I already have to place intentionally in my home. Um, and then if there are things that I feel like I need or want or desire, then I will do that intentionally. Like just 2 days ago, I bought these two shelves that I'm gonna put on either side of this gold sculpture that we have downstairs in our living room so that I could place them on either side and place plants on them. And so I'm going through this process of doing that in this home, and I'm like super excited to see how that's going to um expand us even more and propel us into our next level again. And this time, I'm even feng shuiing everything, making sure everything aligns with feng shui frameworks. And it's so fun. Normally, I do things very intuitively because um, I don't know, I've always been like this growing up. I don't know if people call it OCD, but I'm always very intentional about where I place things and how it looks and feels. And if something is not in the right place after I've done this work, I'll know immediately and will fix it because I can just feel like the natural flow of energy through a space. It's something I'm gifted at and something that I even have translated into my classrooms over the years because I'm a teacher and by day. And, you know, I've had, a decade of experience teaching now or more. And so I have all this experience of setting up classrooms as well with this energetic flow and intentionality. And every time people come into my classrooms, they say things like, "Oh my gosh, it feels so peaceful in here. Like, I love this space." And it's just so, like, they just feel it. And I get comments on it all the time. And I realize, like, that's the same thing with our homes is there's a natural state and flow of energy and of the things that we allow into our lives that will have an effect on us, that will either help propel us forward, help us manifest certain things, or keep us back. Like when I described having old things in my life that no longer resonated. And so, even though this space is still a beautiful place that we love to live in, there are things in this home now that no longer align, even though maybe they did just last month or just a year ago, but now, 2 years in living here, there are things that don't anymore. And so I think um I guess this video is just like a reminder for you to look at your surroundings, your environment, and how critical your environment is in helping you shape who you are and helping you because if you think about your identity helps validate or invalidate your identity. And if you are someone who says you have a certain type of values or way of living, but your environment, meaning the place you live, the place you work, or even the relationships you surround yourself with, don't match those values, then there's some type of discrepancy and incoherence that's going to cause this restless, anxious feeling within. I truly believe. And so that is to me is a ping from our soul and a yearning from our heart to act with full integrity and wholeness and from wholeness, which can only come when we accept when things need to change and evolve and expand and be released so that we can continue to expand our mind, our consciousness, our perception into this next level way of being and seeing the world. And so, and which is why when you expand and you grow, it requires awareness, perception, and your intent. You cannot just, and that's part of the reason why we have free will is to seek that, right? Whereas think about somebody who never intends things purposefully and just kind of allows things life to happen to them and um goes through life not really doing much, right? They will have this kind of energetic feel of stagnation, of non-growth, right? It's almost like if you put a seed in a pot and it never grew, it just kind of stood there. Whereas you put a seed in a pot and it, accepts the water, it uses the sunshine and uses those things to grow and expand. And then it gets too big for its pot. And so now it's going to be repotted into a new place. So that's how evolution of our soul is meant to be as well. And if we don't pay attention and we don't practice that intentionality and that persistence to continue to evolve, then we become stagnant. And I think that's part of the reason why we might feel that anxious, restless feeling. Um, and so, because even though we're spiritual beings, we're still human as well. And so we cannot completely just bypass the material world, and we can even use the material world to help amplify our soul essence. Um, and when those work in harmony, we experience just, I feel, ultimate joy and peace in life. And so when I got that feeling of anxiousness when I came home from the Philippines, I realized I could have saw it as, oh, something's wrong and this is terrible. But now with my level of attunement and spiritual awareness and perception, I can see it as just a reminder and awareness and desire for my soul to evolve, to reflect, to refine and continue to purify, not just from within, but my surroundings as well. And so I just felt called to create this video for anybody who feels like they might be stuck, feeling anxious, and take a look at your environment and see what are the things that you have around you that no longer resonate. And this doesn't necessarily mean adding anything new to your life. It just means look at the stuff that's currently there, because anytime something is in your surrounding, subconsciously it's sending a message to your brain, to your being, about who you are, whether you realize it or not. And so you have to be very aware and intentional about what you place around you. And so do that kind of, and it will take some time and it will take some energy to like go through each thing and kind of sit with it and feel like, is this something that is serving me? Is this something that is um, solidifies me in my highest self at the moment? Is this something that detracts me and pulls me back into the past? And if it is, then having the courage to accept that and release that, because I know when I lived in our last place, there were so many things, and each year and each time I do this, there's so many things where I feel like, oh, should I keep that? Well, it reminds me of that time and blah, 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 all this stuff. But I realized those things that I thought I was meant to keep were like journalings or old notes or things like that that kept me connected to my old identity. So that, and I realized like I didn't need to keep those. And I realized in a way they were keeping me stuck in this old version of myself, because I would find them, I'd read them, I relive them, I'd refeel the energy of feeling those things. And in a way, they kept me stuck. But once I was able to allow myself to release them and let them go, it reflected back to me that I had integrated those lessons, that I didn't need those reminders anymore, that I didn't need to, that old part of me was no longer here in the now, right? And so I could release them and have peace. And so each time there's going to be something like that for you. And it could be not just in physical items, but I also talked about relationships. And this is another huge audit that you should do, um, and be really honest about what is it, and about certain relationships that either help me, fuel me, help me grow, keep me accountable, or detract from me, leak energy, keep me down, and look within to see why that is happening, and then ultimately learn those lessons and release those relationships. Because that doesn't mean you're not a loving person. That doesn't mean that you don't care about those people. It just means that those relationships no longer align, and to allow yourself the freedom to evolve and expand beyond them. And that's okay. And I also too have been going through that process. And another thing too is just looking at places you spend your time in. What businesses do you shop at? What's the dentist that you go to? What your workplace environment, your office, um, and just maybe the family that you visit and their homes, what's the environment like there? And be very conscious about where you are spending your time, because whether you realize it or not, the spaces that you frequent, that you choose to um, put your energy in, will have an effect on you. And so take a look at that, and decide and make a conscious decision about. And it might not be that you never go to those places again. It might be you spend less time there. It might be you go in there with more conscious awareness, and maybe there's a lesson that you're meant to learn there too about how you show up, how you stay authentic, how you stay grounded. Um, but I guess the whole overarching message of all of this is just to be aware. And I feel like, I've been reading the Bible a lot and with my Bible study every week. And that's a message in there, right? Is just be aware, and not from a place of being scared, but just having the awareness and using that perception to stay rooted in God, right? And that intentionality and moving from that space is what's going to move you closer to that which you desire. Because ultimately, that's what we're seeking, is the peace. And see, and when when the Bible says seek first the kingdom of God, is that's what's going to produce the fruit, the experience that will create peace in your life. But you cannot have that if you're not being aware and intentional about using your free will, about where you place your energy and attention. And so when you're being aware and practicing intentionality and using your energy and awareness and attention purposefully, you can't do that if you're surrounded by things that are constantly pulling your energy in all these different directions. Hence clutter in the home around you. And like, I'm just looking at this bookshelf behind me, like I'm really going to go through that too, and just look through and see, okay, does this still align? Do I still need this? Can I let this go to create space for new things to enter my life, to allow myself to become more of who I'm becoming? And the more and more I do this, the more I feel the resonance of how it feels. Because I started last night, and I did like a part of our kitchen in our dining area where our buffet is. And we have like a dark brown wooden buffet with plates on it, and then we have like this oval mirror, gold mirror from that's passed down to me from my grandmother on my dad's side, and two sconces. And that buffet, this is our dining area, had so much stuff on top of it. It had like random things too, like toothbrushes and like all my hair stuff and brushes and pens and like just random stuff, my daughter's artwork. And I ultimately cleaned out all of that stuff. I placed a few things on top very intentionally. I put our food bowl there. Um, I cleaned it up, and it is just when I look at that space now, you can feel the flow of energy there. And a lot of you who are watching this are very in tune with your energy as well and your spiritual nature. It is just, it's like we know this, but then actually doing it and like cleaning your space, being intentional, purging, all that stuff is okay. We have to make time for it because, yes, years can go by, and I too have experiences can go by where we're just like going through the motions of life and going through things and pursuing other things. And this is just something so simple that you don't need any money, you don't need anything. You just need your energy, your physical hands and feet to do this process, your awareness, and just release things. And it is going to feel so good. I'm so excited because I've just done this buffet area. And every time I pass by it now, I just feel the flow of energy there. I feel how calm and peaceful it feels. And I'm just like determined to do that to our whole house, like how I had done in our previous places and my first room when I lived with my parents. Because I'm telling you, each time I did it, a huge transformation happened, and I know that it's going to happen again here. And so let me know in the comments, is there anything that you hope to declutter and work on, or do you have any experiences where you've done something like this and released things or decluttered or made space and something huge and new happened, or a level up in your identity, or both? And I'd be curious to hear your experience. Yeah, I just felt called to come on because it was something that I noticed and something that now that I'm on summer break, summer vacation, is even though I have a lot of other like goals and things that I want to work on and projects, also in my business and just in life, but this is something that has been on my mind for a while, and I realized like after feeling that feeling of coming home from the Philippines, I'm like, oh no, it is time. Like we need to just like do a deep decluttering and purging and make space for all the new blessings that are to come the rest of the year and onward. So thanks so much for listening to this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.